Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, a podcast by me, Mark Decano. But who am I? Well, I've seen multiple performances from over 800 comedians, from Abby Murphy to Zenjiro Kamikaze, in some of the grandest theatres and dingiest pubs, and even on a boat and on a bus. Fair to say, I'm a comedy fan. I love talking to comedians about comedy, and if you like listening to what they have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, review, rate and share the podcast. My guest on this episode studied in comedy as a teenager and has made huge strides in a few short years with awards and TV appearances in a career addressing what he describes as racism, politics and pigeons. It's stand-up comedian Michael Odewale. Michael, hello, good morning.
How's it going, you right?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I was just glad we can finally do this, yeah.
We'll just kick off.
Yeah, let's do it.
Tell me, first of all, how did comedy come into your life? How did you get started with it?
It's a good origin story. I was about 17, I think, when I did my first gig. It was just like in sixth form, but I was about to finish sixth form, going to uni, and it was just something I've always wanted to do. And I was like, I want to try it one time before I go to uni, just to see if I've got any of the chops. Do you know what I mean? Because I was going to go into uni to study history and politics, but it wasn't really my passion. So I was just like, I want to see if something's here. And to be honest, after the first one, there wasn't really. You know, the first gig was kind of nothing. It was like I had like a 3-minute, I think it was downstairs at the King's Head in King's Cross.
Right.
And I had like a 3-minute set. And I couldn't really gauge whether it went good or bad, to be honest with you, because it was just so quick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was probably rushing my words that they might have just been laughing out of politeness. But so I did another one in a couple months later. I think that one was So You Think You're Funny. That was a heat.
Right.
And that one was amazing. Do you know what I mean? So, and from there, I was like, I went into uni, still studying history and politics, but like knowing I wanted to pursue the comedy as far as I could take it. So it was just from there, really.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years ago. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. And when did you see it as a career?
Do you know what? After that second one, I think I was like, I want to make this a career. And so from there, obviously I only really went professional a few years ago, but from there, I kind of saw myself as a comedian.
Right.
I think a lot of comedians are like hesitant to call themselves comedians, to give themselves that official title until like years down the line. But in my head, from that second one there, I was like, I feel like I'm a comedian.
Yeah. So when you come out of university, did you get your degree in politics and history?
I did. So I was doing comedy all throughout uni. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like the whole way through, that was my time on the open mic circuit.
Yeah.
And I actually really appreciated going to uni because it gave me that safety net of being able to gig, but having something like education to do as well. So it never felt like I was just all in comedy. I had something to fall back on, which I think just kind of made the whole process a bit smoother for me, actually. But yeah, out of uni, that's like I just worked part-time jobs and was just doing comedy the whole time as well.
Yeah. So 2016, you were finalist on the BBC New Comedy Award.
Yeah, I remember that. I lost that one. Yeah.
With previous podcast alumnus Lauren Patterson was a finalist as well, I think, that year.
Oh, really? She's done it as well.
Yeah. And finalist in the Chortle Student Comedy Award.
Yeah, that was that was a good year in terms of 2016 was. I remember finishing up uni and obviously been doing a history degree, but didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was kind of that thing of like, oh man, like what's next for me? Because I do actually, obviously comedy, there's no straight career path. You don't know how to progress in it. Right. So I was like, I'm gonna leave uni. What happens next? But in that year, I made those 2 finals. I also got signed that year by my agency, and it was just kind of like a real confidence boost of like, I embrace the unknown, but it's gonna be okay. Yeah. Just keep doing what you're doing. Go find a part-time job, and just keep banging out gigs. And so 5 years ago, and just been still following that same mentality since.
Yeah. And how far did you, having done history and politics, how far did you see that as being something that you would want to include in your comedy career?
Do you know, it wasn't like something planned. it's just, I think obviously politics, it's an awareness of the world around you on a social and political scale, which I think I just naturally have always put into my comedy. And then obviously history is that ability to really analyze something and knowing how to write properly and, make your point, propose something, make a point, all of that stuff. And it wasn't like something I naturally planned for them to link in or with each other. It's just something like I probably liked history and politics for the same reason I like comedy, because that's just how my mind works. So it's only when you look back on it, you'd be like, oh, do you know what? All of these things are kind of interlinked into how I see the world,
Yeah. Is it important for you to have a political message or to make a statement when you're doing comedy, or are you just finding those topics to get the laugh from?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm overtly a political comic. It's not as if I'm reading the world to rights and things like that. I think it's just, for example, if I'm talking about something like race or, my Edinburgh show is about sort of protests and how I'm not really involved. It's always kind of what I'm doing in relation to these things. I'm not really talking about these things. I'm talking about where do I fit in all of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable just like going on stage and being like, oh, this party is terrible. It's not, respect the comics that do that, but it's just not how I talk in every day. I always try and find sort of the nuances and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's the same way I approach it on stage. I just apply everything to myself and the conflicts I have in my head around everything.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you talk about topics like politics, and like you've just said, it's your approach, but you're looking at it from the outside. You're not like the angry young man of politics.
Yeah.
I've heard you described as being charming and affable, and it's very much you're an outside observer of the topics you're talking about. Is that a conscious decision?
I don't know if it is. I mean, I guess you subconsciously just end up writing the way that feels natural to you. If I did feel like sort of talking directly about something, I don't know if I would shy away from that. But my priority is always to just be funny first.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not funny, just talking directly on a topic. I like to find sort of an abstract or sort of an outsider's way in, because that's most interesting to me. Yeah. So I wouldn't say I do anything on purpose. It's mainly just like, how does it feel natural for me to be saying it, and for me to be thinking it. That's just how I always think.
Yeah. So a couple of years after your being a finalist, you were part of the Pleasance Comedy Reserve. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, who did I go up with? I went up with Helen Bauer, who's doing great things. Chloe Petts, Jack Gledell. Yeah, it was nice to be. That was my first Edinburgh for a whole month. Yeah. Obviously, I come into sort of the comedy world hearing about Edinburgh, but it just all felt very inaccessible to me in terms of, having to spend a month out there, paying the rent, flying, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want to fly. So that was a way to sort of get an experience of Edinburgh, having obviously a paid for accommodation, having a ready set audience. And it was good. It's challenging. They're not easy shows. Yeah. Not easy shows, because it's tough when people aren't really coming for you. Do you know what I mean? They're coming, I guess, for the concept of the show in itself. So you have to win them over every night. Which, I guess you do that the same on any comedy night. But I don't know why it just felt a little bit different out there. Maybe you could feel maybe some audience, maybe it's in my head about it. They were like, oh, these are the upcomers? We'll prove it then. You know what I mean? There was a little bit of that in the room. Yeah. But no, it's good. I think Edinburgh is a good concept for just having a month to just figure out your set. You know what I mean? Figure out the best way to deliver, figure out new angles. You don't really get too many opportunities to do that outside of Edinburgh. So it is good for that.
Yeah.
It's just at a big cost.
Yeah, for sure. How did the experience change for you from when you started at the beginning of the month and then a month in? What kind of changes? What was the difference between the beginning and the end?
Well, apart from, I guess, being broken mentally, I think it's just a level of professionalism. Do you know what I mean? In terms of knowing you're set inside out, knowing. I think I'm very good at being sort of playing every room professionally. Do you know what I mean? Playing every room in terms of whether it's 5 people or 500 people. You know, in terms of giving it the same enthusiasm because they've come out and paid for what they've paid for. I think maybe something I could have learned better from that was learning how to improvise a bit more when I look back on it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
Just terms of being a bit looser, and you know, that's something that even today as a comic I could still work on. You know, I've never really been too much of a crowd work comedian. Do you know what I mean? I obviously because I write a lot, spend a lot of time on writing. I'm always kind of had the mentality. You've come to see me deliver what I've got. Do you know what I mean? But there are benefits to just sort of embracing whatever chaos is in the room, and I think that just kind of develops as you get older as a comic. And I'm better at it now, but it's something I probably need to work on.
Okay.
But most times I'm like, no, I worked hard on this thing I wrote. I'm gonna give you this thing I wrote. You got to embrace both sides.
Yeah. Do you have a sit down writing process, or do you just kind of as something occurs to you, you tap it into your phone, that sort of thing?
No, I do. There's something special about putting a pen to a paper. I feel like there's something in terms of even just the way you're writing it. You know, you could be really excited writing it, and then I feel like that shows when you end up delivering it for the first time. And you know, obviously, like if I got no pen and paper on me, I always try and carry a notepad, but I'll put it on my phone. But I do like that process of writing it on paper, because you can. There's something about crossing something out, editing in, putting something in. I just feel more excited when I'm writing with pen and paper. Yeah. And then when I feel like it's more ready, I'll transfer it to my laptop and, you know, just kind of put it all together on there. But no, I always think pen and paper is just more special, more connected.
Yeah. So a year after Pleasance Review, you then went back up with your debut show.
I did.
Yeah, Black Bears Matter. And Best Newcomer nomination straight away. I mean, that's got to be pretty exhilarating after your second visit to Edinburgh, isn't it?
Yeah, that was I was real nervous about going up with that first show, but it was, when I look back on it, it was a really, really cool experience in terms of I'd heard so much about how you have to change what you do for Edinburgh in terms of they say it's a more of a theatre experience, so you have to be less joke heavy, and you have to have that thing at the 45-minute mark where you get sort of emotional, cry about something. And but like for me, when I look back at, because I always find it weird that this idea you have to separate the serious from the comedy, because you're supposed to mix it all together. That's what makes comedy special. You know, when you even look at, you know, I don't know if you ever watched like those old Def Jam, you know, videos from like the 90s, stuff like that. You know, comedians will be talking about real shit. They'll be talking about, you know, police brutality or whatever, but their priority was making it funny as possible, making people howl, laughter, slap their knees, all of that stuff. Yeah. So for me, like, this idea that it becomes more important when you separate it, it just didn't make sense. You're supposed to mix it all together. That's so for me, that was the priority. If I'm talking about protesting and the world around me, you know, how can I mix it all together and make it something I could take into Edinburgh, but also I can take these bits and I can do them in a club. And so I felt like that's what it was good for me, Edinburgh, in terms of doing the show the way I wanted to do it, and still getting a nomination at the end was important to me. I'm very proud of that show. I think it's like, because it's joke heavy, which is how I like it. But at the same time, I don't think it takes away from any of the points that I tried to make throughout. So no, the whole experience was really cool. Yeah, again, expensive though, but cool.
Yeah. And of course, the same year it won Best New Show at Leicester and Hastings. So again, nomination at Edinburgh, but also a winner as well.
Yeah. I mean, that was great because the Leicester one was in February. So it was kind of like, I remember I did that in like a 50-seater room, and I was still working it out. So I didn't even know any award people in the room. But it was like a nice confidence boost to be like, oh, okay, there's something here. You know what I mean? So that gave me the confidence to take it out to Edinburgh and do it the way I wanted to do it. And yeah, I'm happy with that as a first body of work. Just, you know, I'm happy with that. Just reflecting on it.
Yeah, because you took the show to Soho Theatre, and that's now available on Amazon Prime, so you can. No, listeners to this can go on and watch it. It's on the third season of Soho Live.
Yeah, check that out. You know, that was important to me as well, just in terms of having a body of work and being able to film it, put it out somewhere so it's not lost. You know, because sometimes, you know, I talk to acts and they'll say, "Oh, I'm on my 7th or 8th hour out in Edinburgh," but they haven't filmed any of them, even just to put out on YouTube or anything. I'm like, that's such a waste of your creativity, you know. Like if you make something, you want as many people as possible to see it. So just like whatever happens next in my comedy career, just to be able to say I have something to show for my first, you know, almost 10 years doing this, you know, and then whatever happens next. But that first album, if you want to put it like that, is available to. It's been recorded, so yeah.
So what about the difficult second album then?
That's very true. That's very true. I've been, you know, probably next year is when I'll tackle that one. But I've COVID for a couple of years as an excuse for not writing.
Well, the last couple of years, you've had some TV.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things.
Yeah. Mock the Week, Mash Report, stand-up sketch show, and others. Yeah.
Mock the Week was kind of like a surreal one in terms of obviously having watched as a youngster and then being on it, but just in COVID times.
Yeah.
So like the audience is on that massive Zoom screen.
Yeah.
And then like you're already nervous, and then you're telling the joke, and there's a 3-second delay in terms of what they laugh at and not. And then but I managed to do that twice, and then they cancelled it not soon after. So I don't know if those two are related, but I was on there. So.
And how was the TV? I mean, I know it was a different time, let's say. How was the TV experience as opposed to the live room experience for you?
Yeah, it's different because obviously everyone's really nice on Mock Week beforehand, but then, you know, when the show starts, the show has started. You know what I mean? Everyone's trying to get their lines away, and you know what I mean? And you kind of have a little bit of an existential, like, oh, I'm on the show. Like, I'm not watching, I'm involved. You know what I mean? Or like there'll be something like, I'm cheap, but I didn't really pay for a writer. Some people have writers, and I was like, no, I'm gonna do it all myself. But then when like the one line you had, someone's done something that's like pretty much your line, you're like, maybe I should have had someone help me think of like maybe 4 or 5 other things to say about this topic about political whatever.
Yeah.
But so it was a real learning curve, just trying to being in that environment. And again, saying about learning how to improvise, you know, because obviously just like getting involved in what other people are saying. I think probably my best moment on Mock the Week was just a random bit of improvisation that they ended up putting in the show. So it's just like just learning how to, obviously, you know how to write, but just be naturally a funny person. If you be present in the room, you're going to spot things and you're going to know how to deal with that. And so just trusting your instincts it's a big thing in comedy as well.
Yeah. Did you have experiences on TV or doing a live mixed bill where you saw other comedians and you go, I like the way that they're approaching it. They're now one of my peers is now inspiring me to think about things differently.
Well, you know, there's a comedian called Russell Hicks, American comedian.
Yeah.
And in talking about crowd work and improvisation, I think he's kind of widely recognized on the circuit as one of the best at being able to talk to someone and not just do standard, you know, oh, what do you do for a job? You're a mechanic. Oh, what have you mechanics lately? Do you know what I mean? You'll like, you'll build a world around what they say, and it'll bring the whole audience in, and they'll leave feeling like they're part of a community. I think that's the best shows. When you leave feeling like you've been part of something, you know. Yeah. I think that's why people love callbacks so much in comedy. It's like, oh, I know that's an in-joke. I'm part of it. It's like you know what I mean? So he's one of the best at that. So seeing him, you know, Kay Kurd is also great. Just all comedians who their material is sharp, but they also know to leave space for being in a room. Mo Gilligan, you know, just some of these names like that. And then Dane Baptiste, you know, I'd go all day, but you know.
Were there people inspiring you when you started out in comedy or when you were growing up? Were there people that you aspired that helped you on that road to comedy to sort of say, yeah, they're the people that mean something to me?
Yeah, I mean, when I was coming up, because I'm signed by agency Up the Creek UTC Management,
Yeah.
and I used to go to Up the Creek because they had competition called the Blackout,
Yep.
where you get 2 minutes grace to tell your jokes. Then after 2 minutes, they can start carding you and voting you off the stage. And I used to go there, and I do well there.
Mm.
But at the back, sometimes they'd be the comics who signed by UTC. So it'd be Dane Baptiste, it'd be Kay and Mo and
Mm.
uh, Tez Elias, and these were like the legit big comics. And I'd see those guys, and I'd be like, I want to be where they are one day. I want to be in that group one day. So, like, yeah, even now, I look back on it and like the fact that these guys know who I am and they kind of see me as a legit comedian. Like that's the kind of things like forgetting the accolades. It's just getting respect from people who see you as their peers.
Yeah.
That's the real reward, I think, from doing this.
It's interesting you say that, because I talk to people variously about getting awards, getting nominations, getting that kind of recognition either through industry or an awards panel or what have you. But it's interesting there that you say that for you, it sounds like predominantly it's that recognition just from other people within who do what you do. Would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the comedy panel people.
Sure.
They know comedy.
Thank you.
They watch a lot of comedy, but a lot of them, they're not comedians.
Yes.
So the biggest respect comes from the people who do what you do, and they'll be like, I like the way you write, I like the way you do this. And that's when every comedian, if you remember when you first started, that's what you wanted. You'd go to an open mic and it'd be a terrible open mic, but maybe a big comedian has come down to try some stuff. And you'd be watching them like, oh my goodness, like that's how you do this. How do I get there?
Yeah.
And then now you're there. Do you know what I mean? And now that person just talks to you like a normal human being, like, oh, like like you going into a green room of a established comedy club and nobody's looking at you like, well, you just belong there,
Yeah.
Like going backstage at the comedy store and getting a beer at the fridge, and nobody's like, where's this guy getting a beer at the fridge? He's not beer level. You know what I mean? And I'm beer level now. That's all you really wanted, to be able to get a beer and not be judged by the other comics.
I like that. Having been in comedy now for some while, have you learned any sort of key lessons? Have you developed any philosophies that you kind of live by when you're going forward?
I think some things for me is just calmness.
Right.
I think I used to be quite. I'm trying to find a word. I think I used to be able to present calmness, but I wasn't feeling calm inside a lot of times when I was on stage. Right. But now I think a lot more. I'm up there and I feel more in control, and I think it shows as more authentic. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of just having confidence in yourself and in what you are able to do, as opposed to going to a room and thinking, I have to bring this energy or I have to be this person. It's just like, no, I do what I do, and I'm confident that they're gonna appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I just think it makes you for a more authentic comedian, and people end up remembering you a lot more. They always say people don't always remember every specific joke, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like you present that authentic self, it resonates.
Yeah.
So I feel like that level of like calm and collected is always something I try and portray. Because sometimes you do gigs, right? And then obviously it's a Saturday night, Friday night, it could be quite rowdy. So you feel like you need to be more of a geezer and doing all that stuff. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Sometimes you can portray your authority just by being your authentic self. Because, some crowds, they're dicks. They'll prey on weakness. So the moment you show that, they'll try and... But I feel like, what is I don't know if there's any young comics listening. I feel like if you just... And it just takes time. You know, I'm still figuring out who I am after 10 years, not just as a comic, as a person. You know, I'm 27, so I'm still figuring myself out. But I feel like the more you portray your authentic self, is going to make for a better experience for everybody.
Yeah. Have you encountered anything as a comedian that was completely unexpected, something that just surprised you about what it means to be a comedian?
A lot of it is quite boring, I guess. In terms of no, I mean, I guess you think like entertainment industry, it's gonna be all, you know, a bit raucous, and then I just like, I think actually a lot of times when you're coming up as a comic, you're thinking, oh man, this is gonna be this crazy thing all the time, and then I think the past few years when I've become more established, it's like, oh, it's just a lot of traveling, it's a lot of admin, there's a lot of invoicing, it's a lot of traveling 5 hours, doing 20 minutes, and then traveling straight back 5 hours. And, you know, in terms of sometimes you'll feel like, especially as a younger comic, you're like, I've always got to chase the night. You know, I've done the gig. Now I've got to go out and be crazy. It's like, no, you do your job. You go home and, you know, you find a routine that works for you. Especially, I think as an artist, you think, oh, I got to be free and all the time, and I got to be whatever. And it's like, nah, sometimes you need to sit down, send some emails, do some writing, and you'll find that almost a boring structure will free you more creatively, rather than feeling like you need to be, you know, going crazy all the time, you know. So I feel like that element has been like that realization of like, oh, like you can just be normal, and that'll actually make you a better artist.
Yeah. Do you watch comedy?
Like lots of stand-up?
Yeah. Or even, no, like sitcom or whatever. Are you able to watch it as a viewer, or do you have to watch it as a comedian? Can you separate the two things?
Do you know, it's a good question. I don't know if I've ever separated how I'm watching something.
Right.
I just always like, if I'm watching something, I'm being like, if I'm analyzing it, I always just thought I'm analyzing it as a viewer. But I don't know if I'm analyzing it as a comedian.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm not a big, especially if I'm watching something on the television, I'm not a big outward laugher at something. But it's not like I'm suppressing it either, like I was like in competition with them. But I guess I'm just always more like, oh, that's a good bit right there.
Yeah.
I like the way it's formed. But I just always felt like I was doing it as a viewer, but I guess I am doing it as a comedian. I think I'm guilty of, I don't watch enough new stuff. I have like the classics in my terms of like the comedy specials that I love and routines that I love, and I tend to watch those a lot on repeat and just see how they did it and almost like recite the lines like it was music. But I think what I could be a lot better at is like watching different types of comedy and being more of a student of everything. I don't really do that enough.
Right.
I think in that sense, I find it tough to watch comedy as a comedian, just because it's like, it's not always what you want to do in your spare time, I guess, but it is a good way to just explore what's going out in the world and, you know, just pick up things. But I get a lot of my inspiration from like films and music, and hearing how different artists approach topics kind of tends to inspire me more, to be honest.
Yeah. If you're on a mixed bill, do you arrive early or stay late to watch the other acts?
Will not probably. Sometimes, like obviously, if it's like someone I'm like, oh my goodness, I've not seen them before and I know they're really good, I'll try and get there early. But most times it's more my own poor timekeeping than any disrespect when it comes to not watching people. But like sometimes if it's like, if I've had a tough time, it is good to sort of stay and watch the next person. I, like partly hoping they have a tough time too, so I could be like, all right, cool, or just me. But then being humble enough to see how, if they kill it, to be like, do you know what, this room was playable. I just couldn't figure out the right frequency to play it, but they did. And what did they do to do that? You know?
Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes I see an audience and I think, well, you know, the comedian they've just seen was great, but they weren't ready for that person. They're waiting for the headline act or whoever they came to see that one, and they're not open to it. But other times, you know, I know the act I've come to see is coming, and I am open to whatever comes now. And you can see a completely different side of people. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, like there are maybe just sometimes certain frequencies that you can't hit, and or there might just be a cap to
Mm.
what you're able to do with a certain audience, and then just someone else. And sometimes you have to accept. I'm very big on just letting gigs go after I've done them,
Yeah.
good or bad. I'm good at just like letting it go and being like that. That is what that was. You know,
Yeah.
every comedian's had that experience of being in a car show with somebody and they're like torturing themselves over how it went, and
Yeah.
you have to listen to it because most oftentimes they're driving. So you have to sort of nurse them. But most times, if it's good or bad, I'll be like, that is what that was. I'll shake it off,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next one.
Yeah. You don't replay it over and over like some do, losing sleep over
There might be parts here and there where I
it.
do
Yeah.
that, but then what do they say? It's like a 24-hour rule.
Right.
Good or bad gig, you kind of process it and then be like, because if you're gigging, you might be gigging 4 or 5 times a week. You
Mm.
can't just have them all in your head like that. It's gonna stop you from um being present for the next one.
Yeah.
I guess my thing is I don't really watch my sets back or listen to them back, and I probably should do that more
All right.
in terms of because there's certain bad habits you might not even know you do. Like I probably still hold on to the mic stand
Mm-hmm.
too much, or you know, like someone told me there was a joke I had and I wasn't enunciating a word properly, and so it kind of stopped them from like understanding it. I'm like, oh, you pronounce it like that? All right, cool. Things like that. Like, I think I had a joke about quinoa, and I was pronouncing it quinoa,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know what quinoa. Oh, it's pronounced quinoa. All right, cool. I didn't know that. And then being that's another thing, just being humble enough to take advice.
Mm.
I think all comedians, like most comedians, respect advice from other comedians,
Mm.
but sometimes even an audience member, depending on how they say it,
Yeah.
can because that is the people we're performing to. So
Yeah.
depending on how they say something, it is worth taking on board.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of people talk about that whole cancel culture thing and people being too sensitive, but I don't know if somebody comes up to me and say this joke I didn't really enjoy it
Mm.
for whatever reason.
Right.
I'll listen. I might not necessarily change what I'll do, but I'm not going to be rude or dismissive about it.
Mm.
I'll reflect on the bit, and if I
Yeah.
feel like the intention is still pure,
Mm.
I'll be like, all right, cool. I might be like, you know what, maybe I could change this word or do something like that. But
Yeah.
you have to be open to listening to people. That's what we do.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of people coming up to you after shows and pointing out
No,
things that you could have done better or differently?
no. I think if it's happening too much, I think you do need to have a good look through the whole set potentially. But no. I can think of like a couple of times where you're talking about sensitive topics, and it's like, maybe I could change. I still want to tell this joke, but maybe I don't have to say this word. I could make it this word, or
Yeah.
maybe I could put more in the premise to let people know that the position that I'm coming from. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you still have to, if you believe in your joke, trust your instincts. Do you know what I mean? But also prepare for any consequences of trusting your instincts.
Yeah.
Prepare for consequences in terms of maybe like feedback, not violence. I mean,
Yeah. What about heckling? Feedback
mm,
before the show, feedback during the show, two very different things. I mean, how do you
that's
do you
yeah.
get that? How do you deal with
I
that?
mean, yeah. If you could save that just for afterwards, that would be better.
Yeah.
No, I mean you do. I don't get heckled a lot. It's not. I don't think it's as prevalent. I think after lockdown,
Right.
those first few months after lockdown, audiences were a bit weird.
Right.
Because they just hadn't been in big groups for a while,
Yeah.
so they were like excited kids, and sometimes it wasn't all from a malicious place. I do that too. And I'm like, oh, good. That's
Yeah.
that's the whole point, kind of really. You know what I mean? But then I think you handle everyone every situation, personally.
Yeah.
I was doing a gig a few weeks ago and Christmas time, and I knew it was going to be bad because the venue, they put a Christmas tree on the stage. And I was like, they shouldn't do that. You're inciting people to be too festive and jolly. And I had this drunk lady and she was just saying random words during my set. She'd be like, Johannesburg. And I'll be like, I don't know. There's nothing in my set that's even remotely related to the capital of South Africa. You know what I mean? But then she comes up on stage and just like wrestling the mic with me for a bit.
Wow.
And she had to be dragged out by the audience, by the security. She just really wanted to name South African cities. And, you know what I mean? And then, so she dragged out something like that. There's not really much you could do with that crowd work-wise to make it seem seamless. Especially because she had a surprisingly strong grip on the mic. I thought I would just take it back and be like, give me that. But no, she was like, I'll let you have that for a minute. And then she had to be pulled away. And then after that, I mean, the audience are pretty much on your side. So you just kind of ride it out until you leave. But
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes you have to embrace the chaos a little bit. Don't always try and look professional all the time. Just embrace the chaos. This is happening. I'm going to let it happen. And then I'm going to talk about it after.
Yeah.
You know?
That's fascinating. I was at a split bill recently, and there was a heckler in the audience who just clearly thought they were contributing, they were helping. And the first act kind of let it go where she wanted to take it and just like bumping it along and trying to ride the wave kind of thing. And the second act, this heckler decided to contribute again. And the second act just went, nope, and just shut it down. My turn. You stop now, kind of thing. You got to know when to do that, because sometimes you can have a little back and forth, and it's like, all right, this is me, this is mine. You know what I mean? So you got to know when to, because it's annoying for the other audience members. So sometimes you do have to eventually, shut that down, pull the plug, on whatever they do. Yeah. You mentioned lockdown, so you're coming out of 2019, riding the wave, and then the comedy industry closes.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
It was all right, It was all right. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I was at a little point anyway where I was a bit uninspired and uncreative, and I didn't stop during the lockdown. I continued all the way throughout there, but I just feel like having a little break. I didn't want a 15-month potentially not coming back type break. That's not what I asked for. But just having some space, and I picked up some positive habits that I started journaling a bit more, and just writing your thoughts down on paper every day, but like not in a trying to be funny way.
Yeah,
it kind of frees you up to be funnier. It's almost like it's part of my routine now. I journal and I try and write jokes for a little bit, and then you end up seeing angles, and you read back in your journals, especially over lockdown, and things you say that you were just being honest because it wasn't written for anyone else, it's written for you. But you look back and you're like, that is funny. I didn't even notice it. Those are the funniest perspectives sometimes, when you're not trying to be funny. Or there might just be a line or a sentence I wrote, and I'd be like, I'm gonna try and work on that for a little bit. So that was definitely beneficial. And I started meditating as well. I just picked up a couple positive habits. I was lucky in that sense during lockdown. I know a lot of people kind of went crazy, but it kind of gave me some space to kind of be still.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of benefited my comedy. So I was saying earlier, just being calm and more authentic on stage. I think that probably came from that period where I was able to sort of have uninterrupted time to do these positive habits,
Yeah. So how then, given your newfound calmness, do you handle the nerves? Do you still have the anxiety before going on stage, even for the briefest time?
Yeah. Not all gigs, but like, for example, the other day I was there was the Black British Takeover. Mo Gilligan has a gig, and I was on the bill. So that was at the O2 Arena. Yeah, and obviously that's 20,000 people. I'm first on. You are like, oh shit, this is crazy. This is another level of anything I've ever done. 10 times any type of crowd I've ever performed to, and just a whole new experience in an arena. And then, you go up, you're nervous the whole day.
Right.
And then 30 seconds before you're about to be on stage, I think that's when all that stuff I've been doing kind of helped, because I just kind of switched to a state of like, I'm ready now. Do you know what I mean? Also, I can't leave. There's nowhere to go, even if I wanted to leave. So just be calm, do what you know to do, and even playing a stage like that, it's crazy because you're first on, so there's people still walking in. The mic is so loud you can kind of only hear yourself. So most gigs you do, when you're nervous about them, you hear that first laugh, that first big laugh, and it calms you. You're in the O2 Arena in this massive, it's not, O2 Arena is not built for comedy, is it? Like, venue is massive. You got these massive ceilings. The laughter doesn't trap. It just kind of goes up. So you're hearing pockets of laughter. So it's fully you having to trust that, just do what I know how to do, be calm, look confident, do what I know how to do, and trust that they're having a good time. Because I can't see them, I can't really hear them. I just have to appear in control. And, I watched some of the footage back and people told me it went well. So it's like, cool. I've had that experience of having to just fully trust my instincts on stage. And, it worked out.
Yeah. Do you think that the comedy industry is seeing black comedians or new upcoming comedians in the same way now as, let's say, when you started out? Are we moving in the right direction is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think we are. I think in terms of, it's a lot of black comedians not waiting for industry approval. It's doing their own thing. And then industry doesn't know what it wants until it sees what's popular. And then it's like, oh, we want that. Do you know what I mean? So when you look at someone like Mo Gilligan, who started making videos on his phone, and then followers started growing. And then they were like, industry's like, oh shit, this is popular. And then you've seen where he's been able to take it, TV show, O2 Arena. He's built, he wasn't handpicked. He didn't go the Edinburgh route where he made his own lane. And I think a lot of people have seen that, like the profitability of doing that and the sense of control that you can get from just going your own lane. And great thing about Mo as well, just lifting comics up. Like I said, I'm 27, I'm new in the game. He didn't have to put me on the bill, but to give me that opportunity, that experience, now I can't wait to, do my own version of trying to bring up new comics and things like that. But even in the mainstream circuit, even in the industry, I feel like there are a lot of, young black acts who are signed now and getting opportunities now. So it definitely, even from when I started 10 years ago, there are a lot more opportunities. But it's good to just know that you can make your own lane as well. And that applies for everybody, by the way, not just black comics. I think internet is a strange beast, trying to figure out, the TikToks and the Instagrams and the YouTubes, trying to figure all that out. It's not easy, but that once you figure that out, you have your own audience and you don't have to rely on, being put on, whatever TV show and, to make it. You can do it in the way that you specifically want to do it. So I think that has been beneficial for a lot of black comics and comics in general.
So what advice would you give to new upcoming comics? How has your experience prepared you to guide the next generation?
Depends on how new we're talking, because if you're still 1-2 years in, priority is the same. It's just trying to be good. If you're in your first 5 years of being a comedian, personally, you don't really want to be seen too much just yet anyway. You want to be good. You want to be experienced to know that you can play different rooms, and because, let's say you do get seen, you do get exposure. Can you back it up? Can you back up consistently what people, now the eyes on you, can you consistently back it up with good content and knowing that you can play different rooms and having that self-confidence in yourself that I am ready because I've put the work in. If you can't do that yet, then don't worry too much about exposure, because that will come. And then you'll figure out the route that you want to do it in. You know what I mean? Like I said, industry will notice you. They'll sign you. They'll give you TV opportunities, or you could be like, you know what, I'm gonna put out stuff on my phone or do a podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're new in the game, like get good, you know, get good, figure it out, play different rooms, figure out your voice. You know, I've been doing this since I was 17. I'm 27 now. I'm still figuring out my voice just now. You know, I'm still figuring out how I want to tackle certain topics just now. And now obviously I'm getting exposure and whatnot past few years, but I have the confidence of knowing, like, I've been around, I've been to Scunthorpe, you know, I've done different rooms, I've written loads of jokes, and you know, as much as I'm still figuring it out, I have that foundation of experience that I've had.
Yeah.
But then again, at the same time, it's up to you, as everyone's different. So if you're a young comic and you feel like I only need a couple years and now I'm ready to be seen by everybody, then, you know, you might be the exception to the rule. You know, Eddie Murphy was huge was 16? He was on SNL and things like that. So you might be that person, but in my opinion, you know, just spend some years just kind of figuring out how you like to do stuff.
Yeah.
Generally, just how you first tend to be seen is how you will be seen. So you 2 years in and you're getting loads of exposure because you've gone the TikTok route and you've built a mass following and you want to start doing stand-up shows, might not be you years down the line, but you've kind of established yourself as this thing. And, you know, I feel like there's more time than you think. There's no need to rush. It's what my advice is to young comics.
Yeah. Brilliant. Michael, where can we find out about you? Where can we find out where you're playing?
That's a good question. I got Instagram. It's where I tend to do a lot of my social media, and it links to my Facebook now, so I don't have to go on Facebook, and so this is good for me. But that's Michael Odewale Comedy. I post my shows on there, post all my content on there. It's mainly Instagram stories talking about football results, which is, it's just content. It counts as content. I'm doing a work in progress on December 21st, so just trying to figure out the next show, and but I'll be doing lots of in the new year as well, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next stand-up wise. So you can find me on there, and that's the main location, man.
Brilliant. So finally, my last question, as it always is, in line with the title of the show, is: can you please sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Boring admin. 50% admin, 50% fun. Let me know it. 50% admin, 45% fun, and then 5% Croatian women trying to wrestle the mic from you when you're on stage. Strong Croatian women trying to wrestle the mic from you on stage. That's a good percentage of what my comedy journey has been.
Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate you.